Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. Hi, I'm Bonnie Violet. I'm a trans, femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, digital chaplain, and person struggling with technology.
Hi, my name's Anthony. I'm a 6-year doctoral student in clinical psych. I just had a really good bag of peanut M&Ms, and I'm 2 Red Bulls in, and I care about you.
And I'm Lulu, and I am, my pronouns are he, him. I am in recovery for crystal meth and alcohol. I'm a former Miss CCC, and I am always in search of balance. Bonnie?
Each week we create and provide a brave space for us to talk about topics of recovery.
And yes, our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for those people in recovery.
By tackling topics sometimes used to separate us.
Absolutely.
Before we do that, please like, subscribe, comment, and ding that bell.
Ding, 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 ding,
Ding,
ding.
ding.
Ding that bell.
Hi, guys.
Hey, sorry about the slow start. We had a couple issues on our end. But
On
we're
my
here.
end.
Well, we had them over here too.
Oh, did you? Good.
Yeah. Earlier we had them on this side.
It's a time. I think we've been having like broadband or like.
I think that's when I hear
connection
people
challenge.
say
Mercury in retrograde.
Yeah. I don't know if that's current.
Okay, I don't care.
It seems like it's always in retrograde,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I don't know.
What's up? How is everyone?
I'm good. You know what? Actually, it's like I just I had to do some willing and dealing because it's like in September and early October I have 2 conferences that I'm going to, and I've already used up all my PTO, so I had to figure out it's dangerously close to a time when like there's blackout where no one can go, but I worked it out and I'm like, hallelujah, there is a God.
Okay.
I mean,
There
I
it is.
need to share.
And
You asked,
she made sure you got to those conferences, huh?
you know what? Honestly, it's like, yeah, exactly.
I feel that.
And it's crazy because it's like I booked flights, rooms, and everything before like I knew I had the time off. So I'm practicing some faith.
Yeah, dress for the job you want, not for the one you have. Not the same, but I love that expression.
Absolutely.
How have you been, Bonnie Violet?
Indeed, yes. Sometimes you just have to set some things in motion, and everything else will catch up, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm good. I will, like, for folks who are watching, I apologize. I'm holding the camera in my hand for the next 45 minutes. So who knows what that's going to be like. But other than that, I'm good. I'm in Idaho, getting ready to go to Chicago next week. I'm going to the conference affectionately called AIDS Camp this next weekend. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Cool. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I've just been really busy writing. I played games this past weekend with Brandon and some other folks. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I discovered yesterday that I cannot stay in my house for 24 hours. It's just great because I
24 hours without like
without interacting with other human life. I've been busy writing, and so it's really easy for me to just like stay stuck at home, and it drives me crazy. So
I didn't have a problem with that when I hit COVID.
Yeah,
I was like, friends dropped some stuff off at the door, and I was good. To go.
Yeah, no. So shall we talk about today's topic?
Yes.
Today's topic is the courage to change, which I think is pretty self-explanatory.
Shout out to DH, the past chair for Living Sober, the conference, Western Roundup Living Sober.
She thought of the topic.
That was the theme for the conference.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
yes. And but it touched me and inspired me so much. So I was like, why don't we talk about it?
The courage to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I have an idea. On the count of 3, let's name one thing that we've been struggling to change. You ready? You down, Bonnie Violet, or no?
I can try to scream something.
Okay, ready? Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Character jealousy. Assassination.
Wow.
I feel like I heard yours above Bonnie Violet's and mine.
I know. I just lip synced Lulu's. No, I actually didn't end up spitting anything out, but I was impacted by yours.
I know.
Lulu.
Honestly, I was I'm feeling it. I always believe like the louder you speak, or when you're talking to somebody about something,
Yeah.
the louder you're speaking to that person, the more you're needing to hear yourself.
Yeah.
When you're spending all this time, I'm all this, yeah. It's like that's
So are
cool.
you?
I just say for myself.
Are you trying to change change your assassination of other people's character, or people assassinating your character?
Oh God, no. I'm not concerned about other people with their thoughts. That's none of my business. You can think what you want about me. I mean, and that's the gift of the program. It's like, because I can't. I'm powerless over what people think, unless and it allows me to sort through bullshit. Because if you were a person who's going to make a judgment about me without knowing who I am, then that lets me know right off that maybe I don't need you in my space until you're able to find a way to get to know me, and then make your decision at that. But for me, initially it was gossip, the idea of gossip, but the whole character assassination, like, I've gotten better. I'll remove myself from situations at times, but then there are times where it's like, it just feels so good. It's like, oh yeah. It's like, get over here and gossip with me, or help me tear this person down. And honestly, it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm doing it. It's like second nature. It's like breathing, and I'm doing it without even thinking about it. So,
That's interesting. Gossip in tribes is used as a way of self-government. It's a way of governing people. And it's also a way of building community, because it's right, like, you can bond over gossip. It isn't the best way of doing it, but it's super toxic. But I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why gossip exists, and why it, like, elicits the certain feelings that it does. I mean, it's like deeply rooted in us to gossip.
Mhm.
Not that we should, obviously.
No, absolutely.
Or shouldn't. I don't know.
I think that Anthony's giving us permission to gossip.
No, I'm just saying like, there's some flexibility there. There's a like an evolutionary reason for why we gossip.
I think that, I think there's a line. There's some things that, we can talk about. And I tried to change the language to, like, it is care and concern. It's not gossip. It's care and concern, especially if it is care and concern.
Is that Karen concern or Karen concern?
Karen's concern. Yeah. So character assassination is yours.
Absolutely.
Mine is jealousy and romantic relationships, not necessarily outside of romantic relationships, although a little bit outside of character. I mean, relationships. The one thing I wanted to respond to, I wish I could be that way. I wish I could, like, not care what people thought of me. I mean, and to some degree, there's a part of me that doesn't. I think what fucks with me is when whatever the thought is kind of corresponds with some, like, vulnerability or sensitivity I have, like a pre-existing insecurity, and they just so happen to kind of brush up against it. That's the shit that fucks with me the most.
Yeah. Well, but oftentimes, I mean, I think kind of thinking what you're all saying too is, like, for me with, like, gossip or that sort of thing, oftentimes I feel like that is coming from a place of insecurity. Then what that typically does for me is it actually causes me to feel more insecure, because I feel like if I can talk shit about you, then other people are definitely talking shit about me. And so that makes me feel that much more, like, kind of like insecure. And then it just kind of, like, builds.
Yeah. I think for me too, like, just like where I am right now in my life, like, gossip makes me feel so fucking disgusting. Like, I just feel so like dirty and wrong, and I don't know what it is. And I don't think, I mean, not to say that there haven't been times where I'm like, oh, like, what's the tea? You know what I mean? Like, if something, like, but never like in a
session.
Yeah, like, not in a malicious way, but like, say something like popped off in the cafe, like, I might want to be like, yo, like, who is that?
Yeah. I think it's fair to say the place where I am dealing with or struggling with this idea of character assassination is at work. And because I am in a situation where I feel powerless, and it's frustrating because I'm in a managerial position, and I think a lot of it, I find it happening when I'm trying to get consensus or get somebody to support you. So maybe because I don't, and I guess that is insecurity. I feel insecure with regards to what I'm doing, and the way that I'm starting to handle it, and I've gotten much better. But the way that I'm handling it is like, I'm practicing. I'm really happy to be here. I'm grateful I've got this job. I don't need to worry about how anybody else is doing it, especially if the owners are good with how a person is showing up. I'm good. I should be okay with that. I'm not going to lose my job over somebody else's nonsense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, the one thing I was going to say, I always talk about this when I share. It's like, okay, so initially in finding my voice, especially when I was younger, I cared desperately about what other people thought, especially family members. But I was so defiant, I would not say, like, I don't care. I don't care. You know how kids are defiant. I don't care what you think, but I care deeply. And then I got to a place where I was like completely like, finding that voice, I just don't care. Fuck you guys, fuck this, whatever. But I still care.
Mm-hmm.
Now I I care. I acknowledge that I do care what people think. I just can't let it affect what I do next.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be a thoughtful person, but it's like I'm not going to get caught up in like you. If you think I'm a jerk or you think I'm an asshole, then you need to think that because why are you looking over that way?
Because I know you're not talking to me like that.
Wow, Anthony just got sassy. But you
I do know what you mean.
Exactly.
Yeah. I feel it. Bonnie Violet, what
Part of that,
was your
what,
thing?
just kind of to speak that too, I think part of that challenge though is oftentimes is it actually what other people like. I know for me it's a lot of the times it's like what I think other people think of me, which is actually what I think of me, really. You know what I mean? So it's like I got to get good with that. But I mean, I think for me my biggest challenge to change, or the thing that I want to change, that I think I don't know that I can really change it. It's just how my acceptance around it maybe. But I feel very challenged with being 43 years old, going through this extreme body change, identity change, name change. And in a lot of ways, I'm like a 13, 14-year-old little girl, but like I have like a 43-year-old mind. And so like I have the body insecurities of like a young girl or somebody in puberty. But like, so it's like there's this like understanding of this is where I'm at and this is just part of it, but also feeling so insecure and self-conscious about things is really unnerving and unsettling and feels like a lot of wasted time and energy. So I think for me that's something that I don't know, that's a place of where I would love to experience some change.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And whether it's like, okay, you can just be pretty tomorrow, or me just being more comfortable with just where I'm at,
Yeah, I feel that. I sometimes do this thing when I'm like walking because I like despite my best efforts, some days I just am filled with fear and like say I'm like walking down the street and it's probably left over from like my teenage years, but I just feel like all these eyes on me, and so I become hyper aware of like, is my back straight? Am I like I just start thinking about all these different things. And then I'll have like a moment where I'll think to myself, okay, if none of these fears or insecurity existed, how would I behave? How would I walk? How would that change? Like, would I notice things differently? And occasionally that'll take me out of it, but it takes a lot of effort. And I'm also like, at some point, I don't know. I mean, I still have some stuff left over from when I was a kid, or like my teenage years or whatever. And to some extent, it's not as serious as it was then, but like sometimes I'm just fucking tired of having like the same stuff come up over and over and over again. And the frustrating thing about that, it's like it's not that I don't have the courage to change, it's that like the work, and I hate using that word, but like the work and like the effort that goes into changing those things can be really exhausting. And I think I'll round it off by saying that, and I know that at least if in working my program, it's not my changing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a turning over. It's a acting as if. It's a all this stuff. But that should like when the feelings come up, when the insecurities come up, they're real, and I can't help but cower sometimes.
I heard one of the speakers at the conference talk about the difference between this idea of courage and bravery, and that they were not the same.
Right.
And you talked about fear. I mean, it's like a lot of that, and the same for you, Bonnie. It's like, I'm sure even though a lot that your experience is exciting, there is fear, and fear. Courage is that fact that there's fear. It's not going away, but we're taking the actions that we need to take, regardless of. And I think that's what's significant for me. Like, I really like in the serenity prayer, figuring out like what I can change, and being courageous enough to change it, and then accepting what I can't change so that I can get to the real work, because I think I always thought that this idea of unmanageability, and that we define, I thought this idea of unmanageability was that I was trying to change and control things that I could not change. Like, I was out there trying to push the wind, and it wasn't going to happen, and it was frustrating, and it was causing me. It was affecting me in ways that just wasn't healthy. So.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking of yesterday? So sometimes I feel like the world is divided between two different people. Like, on one end, you have all the people who have no idea how obnoxious they are. And then on the other end, you have all the people that recognize how obnoxious those people are. And like, never shall the two meet. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's some people, I'm obviously overgeneralizing, and I know it's much more nuanced than this, but there are days where I feel like, man, like, I wish I could be so consumed with myself that I don't notice anyone else, like, there's just some people, and I'm not this person, and I might never be this person, where I see these people who are just like 100% confident, and they seem so impenetrable and kind of oblivious to the world, and they're just kind of so consumed with themselves.
Well, do you think that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree that there might be some
like sociopaths.
There might be some like that are consumed with themselves, but I think that there are healthy ones. It's not that they're consumed with themselves; they're just present in a way that maybe others aren't.
Well, and oftentimes it just depends on the perspective of who's around you, too.
Yeah.
Some people might experience you in a way that feels like you're super connected and you're super aware because you're aware and connected about the same things that they are. But you come across somebody else who's looking at things differently that you're completely oblivious to, then, they could be perceiving you in that way that you could be, you know what I mean? Like, some of it just comes down to that,
Yeah. I've been blown away. I've been blown away by, like, sometimes when I talk to people and they tell me what their impression of me was, as opposed to what I think is going on, I'm all, you really haven't been watching this movie.
Yeah, I know. You know what I get a lot when people get to know me, they'll say, oh, I didn't realize that, like, you were actually not that serious and kind of funny. And I'm like, what the fuck did you think? Like, I get, because I think people get this expression, like this impression of me that I'm like really kind of like stodgy. And I've worked with clients too, where they have like this idea of me that I go home and I listen to classical music and I drink tea and I go to, you know what I mean? Like,
that's I
see that in your future.
Yeah, that seems like an ideal.
Everything's just perfect. It's like,
yeah, I mean, some of the projections I think are accurate, but like, I just think it's, what did you just do?
We have a comment.
Oh, there was a comment that came in?
That's our new, he puts end up when we have a comment.
What's the comment?
Ooh,
Ashley.
Hi, Ashley. Do you want to read it?
I will. I'll read. Ashley Blow says, this sort of ties into what other people think, but I often have the need to clear up misconceptions. I want to fix things that someone else may have gotten wrong about me, or who may have intentionally miscommunicated or intentionally communicated something false about me, which drags me into an entire situation that I really don't want to be a part of, but I often can't let it go. Ooh.
That's a tough one.
I have a follow-up question, Ashley. Why do you think you can't let it go? Or like, what makes it hard to let go? I will wait for your answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. I mean, that's super relatable. Like, for example, I've been in situations with like a friend or like an ex-partner where we're like not seeing eye to eye, and I like lockjaw because I need them to see something the way I see it, but like you reach an impasse. That's really interesting to me. And I think for me, what makes it so sticky is there's something about me that feels so tied to this thing that like, if you don't accept it, if you don't, you know what I mean? I feel like there's something about me that's going to fall apart, or like that feels kind of incomplete. And I think maybe on a deeper level, when that happens to someone, or at least to me, what do I want to say here? That it's like, it's almost like a fear of death. Like if you don't see this part of me, it's not alive, or it's dead, or it has like some implication for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's you trying to control what somebody thinks of you.
Yeah, and it's pointless.
Yeah,
it's absolutely pointless. I mean, I had a situation occur. This is while I was in my active addiction. I remember there was a situation where I lived at this place. We were eating in the lunchroom, and one of the guys was completely cracked out, and he came and he served me my sandwich, and it was the worst thing I'd ever seen. And I got so mad, upset, or whatever. But I wanted the person that was sitting with me to feel what I was feeling, and they didn't feel that. And for the longest time, I think it took a few weeks before I finally realized, oh, I love this person. They don't have to agree with me. And I was able to carry that, and honestly, I would like to say that I'm always that solid, like with what I mentioned before, but I think sometimes I slip back into kind of that self-doubting, insecure, whatever that causes me to go there. But I try not to stay there.
Yeah, I feel that.
Did we got yeah?
Oh, Ashley said.
When I think
Ashley said, I don't know. It just bothers me so much that someone would intentionally misrepresent a situation. Here.
Again, that's when I know that's how I sort through bullshit. Because if that's how you're showing up for me, I'm gonna love you from across the street for in this moment, Because it's like honestly, I think it has something to do with getting older too. Because I don't have that much patience for not. I would say I don't have patience for nincompoopery.
Yeah. I mean, you only have so much time left.
And it was. Wow. Okay.
You're the one who brought up age.
I want you to. Let's see. Where is this at on the recording? Go back to this number. If you want an actual like example of Anthony being an asshole.
I'm just giving it back to you, and I think we keep talking over Bonnie.
Oh no, it's fine. It's okay. I mean, the only thing I was thinking, just in response to what Ashley was sharing and stuff too, it's just like part of that is just like, at least for me, if I find myself in that situation, sometimes people are just assholes and they're awful and they're wrong. And other times there might be some sort of truth or some sort of insecurity that I have that thing is triggering. And then because sometimes, if somebody's just a dick, like, or whatever, like that doesn't even have to bother me necessarily. But, so I think part of it for me sometimes is just to like kind of look at it. And sometimes it can be both, sometimes it can be both that, this person's not being kind, but also it's kind of hitting this thing in me that reminds me of the person that I once was, or maybe just hits a place in me that just kind of, triggers something. And I think that's something, I mean, for me, that I could then try to look at or pray about, or, I don't know. Ponder.
Yeah, I'm on step 1 with my sponsee, and obviously we're focusing on like powerlessness and unmanageability. And I think one of the things that is hard for me, well, one, I think like if I really think about step 1, I think like I literally cannot control what anyone thinks or sees, right? Like there's a part of me that's like, well, if my body looked like this, I can make people think this. If I sounded like this, I can make people think this, right? And I, to some degree, I do think that there's kind of like a millisecond or a fraction of an experience that you can create for someone.
Yeah.
But it all falls apart, right? Like it's kind of like, I think we were talking about art the last time, and how, once you create art and you put it out into the world's going to do whatever they want with your art. Exactly. You know what I mean? And so, I think in thinking about step 1, it's about like, wow, what if I really can't control anything? And if I really can't control anything, doesn't that give me the freedom to just kind of like relax and breathe easy,
Well, if you accept that you can't control it, but again, like I think there's always in the back of your mind, oh, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this perception. I was thinking about while you guys were talking, and especially with what Ashley was saying, there's this piece that like, and I go back to like when I was in Stonewall and other groups, and I didn't want to hear any feedback. I didn't want to hear feedback because possibly what someone was sharing with me was what was going on, and I was the one with the warped idea of how I was showing up. Because of course, like when I came into the rooms, when I came in early recovery, I thought I thought every time I got up and shared, I was giving some amazing speech and just really kind of, and it was gibberish and I didn't make sense, and my perception was completely off. And while I want to keep those walls up and be all guarded and all that good stuff, sometimes, the sometimes is when it's coming from a genuine place, where somebody who loves and cares about you, because if they love and care about you, they can find a better way to do it than talking shit or bringing you into something that you don't want to be in, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think in some ways too, it's like we can come to know the truth and see the truth, but that doesn't mean that there's not more truth to like to be revealed or to be seen. And oftentimes that takes it from something outside of us. So sometimes you can come to hear something or an opinion that someone else has that seems contrary to how you see things, that doesn't necessarily have to negate your truth or even your understanding of the truth, but it could add to it, and both of it just being kind of a bigger truth.
We've talked about this before. Yeah.
Bonnie, you look so wise. I was
Yeah.
watching you and I was thinking, oh my God, give me more. Feed my soul.
Do I was thinking I was like getting all like convoluted or something.
No, so I studied rhetoric in undergrad, and there's two types of truth. You have truth with a capital T and like truth with a lowercase t. And we've talked about this, and like there are two different ways of arguing. You can have an argument where you have someone who's right and wrong, or you can have an argument where two people are presenting truths. Those truths are combined, and then you have like a bigger truth. Right. And because we live in like kind of like an adversarial system, like where we have laws that say like someone's right or wrong, that's basically how we approach conversations, right? We say like,
those conversations are best when you're on the outside looking in, and you're the individual that can see. You guys are arguing about the same thing and you're on the same side, but until they're able to see it, it's like you kind of have to step out and say, do your thing, boo.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things I've been appreciating about meetings, at least in shares, is sometimes I'll go to a meeting and like you'll hear someone get so stuck on an idea, and there's something really comforting of knowing like, shit, like that's the idea that they're stuck to, like that's the sticky idea, and that's not my sticky idea, but my brain still has the same functions where like I'll lock jaw on something and I'll repeat it over and over again, and that feels so mine and so real. But I can listen to somebody who's talking about one thing and be like, man, like I think they need to get over that. You know what I mean? But like the mechanism is still the same, but like the feeling, it just feels different.
It's definitely easier to tell somebody else.
Like, so how is it that you get courage to change?
How do you get
courage
to change? There's part of me that feels like you don't get courage. I feel like it's like you don't get courage. It's an act. So the act is in the face of things that you're fearful.
Actually, Bonnie, you talk about this a lot. Like, I think that one of the great things about the program, or any program you go into, when you make that decision to go into the program and there are people around you loving and supporting you and showing you examples or whatever, it is through that building trust with those folks who you believe are not going to hurt you. Like I've heard you say that you start to, dip your toe in the water, because I've had sconsies who come in and their guns are blazing, and for whatever reason, that sconsies that were timid, and it took time. It took a little time. So I think that it's different, definitely for each person. For me, I was so beaten down that I didn't see. In my mind, I was thinking, I'm just going to do whatever is put there. And so my courage was borrowed. My strength was borrowed. I trusted, regardless of whether or not I really trusted. I trusted. I don't know.
Yeah. So is it possible to change without courage, or does all change have courage?
It's inevitable.
It sounds like a QAnon. Is it QAnon?
You're either gonna come willingly, or we're gonna take you by force.
Yeah, kicking and screaming. Yeah, I like.
Is there still courage in that? I don't know.
No, I feel like that's just tolerance. Yeah. Like you can get to somewhere kicking and screaming, or you could just get there, exactly. Right?
So you think courage is something that happens it's kind of like a skill that we develop once we change enough, or maybe because I know for me, for a long time, it took a lot of pain and a lot of hurt and a lot of fear, I think, to change. But is just the action. But I could be in a lot of pain and I could be really afraid and still not change, right?
Yeah.
So does it take courage to then change? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like it's not. I think the problem with words is that, you know, I think we've talked about this before, where they're only, you know, like they're only estimations of thoughts. Like they're always inaccurate kind of characterizations of
Right.
bigger
And all of
experience.
our understandings are going to be different.
Yeah, you know.
But I think that even in that pain and that suffering or whatever, there's courage in that, because I think that especially for us, when maybe the litmus test is if I don't pick up and use today,
Mm.
and maybe I'm not actively doing everything I can to be better, but I'm not going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so that requires a sort of courage, you know? So I think that, you know, maybe those they're not exclusive, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna have a Bonnie Violet moment, because I think that there's a part of me that, in listening to this, I feel like actually it's much more expansive than that. Like, I think it's much more vague. I think it's much more gray. I don't think that there's like this right or wrong way of thinking about change, or that we can actually give it a name like courage. You know, I think there is something kind of mysterious and spiritual about change that happens. And sometimes it's so subtle and people notice it and you don't notice it. And if you don't notice it, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the tree in the forest.
Exactly. Yes, and would it be helpful to be able to look at your narrative and reframe it or relabel it in a way that is truth, that maybe develops more trust or strength or hope, because you're like, maybe because you saw the courage and all the past change. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if it could be a tool in kind of helping, because I know I found it helpful when I can go and look back at my narrative and see and understand things differently than what I could at that time. And it just helps me feel better about that. It reminds me of my resilience. You know, it builds my faith that even when I can't seem to have the courage or whatever, like, that it's there, you know? So I wonder, I don't know, just a thought.
We have a comment.
We have a comment from who?
Yes, comment.
Ashley says, is surrendering courageous?
Absolutely. I think
Is surrendering. Your answers are so quick. I need to chew on it.
I'm
It's
sorry.
vulnerable. It's vulnerable as fuck.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Ashley, I'm gonna have to get back to you. I don't know.
Brene Brown would be like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, no, I think surrendering.
Brene
Like,
Brown would be like, what's gonna sell me more books?
She would literally say, fuck yeah.
yeah, no, exactly.
No tea, no shade. All the tea, all the shade.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, surrendering
Oh,
is, I think surrendering is really hard.
Yeah,
And takes a lot of heart.
Especially if you're someone, like, I don't know about you, but I think my first addiction was to being right. You know, to being right and not wanting to show. I always thought it was weakness if I showed you that I wasn't right or that I didn't know. And the reality is, like, you know, there's strength and maturity and saying, hey, I don't know, and I need support, I need help, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're getting close to time, huh, Brandon? No, Brandon. Oh, Brandon said we had 10
minutes, 12 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I want to go back to the narrative thing. So my very first year of grad school, I had this like moral dilemma where I thought, like, oh, as a psychologist, am I part of the problem? And by that, I mean, like, do I come to represent this major narrative that when I'm working with a client, I'm trying to fit them into, right? Like, oh, there's a certain way to think, there's a certain way to behave. And my job is to somehow get you to align with this thing, because if you align with this thing, you'll feel better, right? So the way I posed it in class was, you know, are we authoring someone's experience, or are we co-authoring someone's experience? And what I think is interesting, I don't think I ever got an answer to that question. I think it's not about like authoring or rewriting, but I do think there is a way at least in my own experience, that we don't have to rewrite things, but if we come to know the world differently, all the things are rewritten. Like, you know what I mean? Like our perspectives shifts, you know what I mean? Like I don't have to go back and chase every issue I've ever had. I don't have to go back and chase every issue I have. If I come to know the world in this kind of different way, and from my own experience has been like, I think I have a lot more compassion for folks after having done a 4th step and like seeing shit in my family and all that other stuff, that now I feel like a lot more patient, and I can look back at my past and have more, you know, empathy for myself and the people that were in my life, etc. And I didn't have to rewrite anything. You know, I just literally, I think the kind of what it comes to is I really came to understand or build the kind of tools to be present. But like, I wish there was another way of saying that. You know what I mean? Almost to live in such a way where I have milliseconds of experiences where I'm like, I'm here right now, and I'm not in the past and I'm not in the future, but I'm here right now. There's something magical that happens in that experience where you don't have to rewrite everything because you realize everything's fine.
Yeah. But I think that takes some skill to get there. And
Exactly.
I don't necessarily think, sometimes it takes looking behind to kind of come to more of an understanding, unless you are able to, and you're now be able to, because like earlier you said something about like, oh, I'm having the same problem or the same, which I find myself there all the time. And the truth of it is, if I'm like really honest, is like, no, bitch, this is not the same thing. Like if like I'm a different person, this is a different scenario, they're a different person, you know what I mean? And so I think, and those are the things about our past that sometimes can keep us stuck, because we feel like, oh my God, I'm at the same place I've been for 20 years. And the truth is like, no, you've made some progress, even though it might look or appear on the outside to be the same thing, it's not. And so I think sometimes that's hard to do without like doing some excavation.
Yeah.
But not always.
Yeah, no, I feel like, okay, so if I'm not in a place where I'm able to kind of determine my narrative, or if I'm not able to tap into, because I think sometimes I'm not able to tap into, I always think about when I was struggling, everything that my parents had given me, all this foundation, I wasn't tapping into it. And so I was falling for everything. And I think that just like the steps, sometimes we do all the work on the steps that gets us to the point where we're able to then go to therapy or whatever. And we got all these different processes. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the work that you would do as a therapist gets that person to the point where they're ready to then start determining their narrative, where they're finding their voice and all that good stuff. So I think that it's all, first off, I think that any action I take, I look back on it now, and I think I changed like how I use the words. Like I stopped saying good and bad, and I started focusing on like higher choices and lower choices. And then I told myself all of those choices were my choices. And even in as kind of dark as it was empowering for me, because I made the choice to maybe go that way. I did the best I could, you know, didn't want to have any regrets. I did the best I could with the information I had, but it was my choice. And it took me longer to get to a place of loving and understanding it. But now that I'm at that place, like what you were saying, Bonnie, I can look back on it and say, oh, okay, you know, this is what it was. This is where I am now. And thank God I'm in a different place now. But I love how Patrick's always says, I look back at that kid and I love that kid and I hug that kid and whatever. No,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one other thing about so you were talking about like in like as a psychologist or in my practice, I like there's so many different ways of practicing, and the way I work in answering that my own question is like I have a core belief, and different people work differently. I have a core belief that all people want to be happy, and in the simplest terms, you know, we get into trouble when in pursuit of that happiness we start to kind of like rub up against the world. So sometimes like the world, you know, we can have, what is it, in liberation psychology they say you're a normal, everyone's like a normal person and you're having a reaction to the world, right? As opposed to you're having a reaction to the world, you're anxious, so therefore there's something wrong with you. But no, you're having a normal reaction to the world. And so my core belief is that everyone is trying to be happy, and that every decision that we make, we believe it's going to make us happy. From lying to using drugs to all these other things, we believe it's going to make us happy. And so I think what I see as is like when I'm sitting across from someone, I'm what I'm thinking about is like, okay, how do we clear up that path, and clearing up that path looks different, for everyone. You know what I mean? And I think to kind of bring it back to recovery, I think that's one of the beautiful things about the 12 steps is like the 12 steps are what they are, but everyone gets something different. It's always magical and it's always big, but it's always something different. It's something so uniquely prescribed for the person who's doing the steps.
Yeah, there's enough room for you to be able to define your own happiness and what it is to get there. And I think sometimes that's the hard thing when you're working with other people or people you care about, is coming to a conclusion of what you think will make them happy instead of helping them find their happiness. And I think oftentimes that's easy to see, or I feel like I know what, like, I think that could be a difficult thing for parents and children dynamic, that idea of like, I feel like a lot of my parents' problems with my life and the choices I've made in it and how I live my life is that they don't believe that I can be happy and joyous and have love and be free being the person that I am or the way that I exist. And so that's like, you know what I mean? So I think like that's something that can be really challenging. And like, I think what you were talking about, not being afraid of trying to put everybody in that same box, like, you know what I mean? And I think that can be a hard thing to do, especially when we come to get it for ourselves. We want to help other people too, but we really only know how we did it for us. And we don't really know what's best for anybody.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to let everybody know that if you want to get in touch with Lulu, you can always reach me at the gram at LouieLou86. I just posted a fun picture of Anthony and I, and he seems to think that I always deliberately post pictures that are not flattering, but that's not the case. The camera doesn't lie.
Right? Well, and
the camera doesn't lie. No, we're not getting past that. We're not moving past that. The camera doesn't lie.
Yeah. I know I always look better in real life than I do on camera. That's what I tell myself.
Yeah. I mean, the general theme when I go on dates is you look better in person.
Yeah.
You're
right. That's just what you tell them?
No, that's what they tell me.
Oh, I see.
Like, where Lewis is where they're like, how old is that picture you posted?
Oh, wow. Wow. Character assassin. I think
it's like black and white.
Somewhere in this hour we chose violence. Huh?
Yeah. Wow. Well, and if you all want to reach me, you can find me at A Queer Chaplain on all the things. I'm currently working on a new drag and spirituality series that'll start next Wednesday for the next 3 weeks. So if you're interested in hearing drag artists talk about their spirituality, check out my links. Also putting on a spiritual drag con for folks who are interested in that in Chicago. We're just 3 months away from that. Sorry, I wanted to put a little plug in.
I don't think I've ever been a guest on that drag and spirituality.
Well, I'm looking for people with spirituality to share. Just teasing. Well, and you would have to get in drag, which you usually only do for fundraisers.
Okay.
As you've said repeatedly, right before you tell people you like balance.
No, I'd love to have you on sometime.
You hear that?
I hear it. Thank you.
It's going to be on like a Monday morning when no one's on.
No, it's like 3 a.m.
Sunday at 4, exactly at 4 o'clock.
Sunday at 4. And if you want to find me, you can go to @LucasCCC on Instagram. Y'all know the story. I have 2 pictures on there. If you message me or you add me, that's cool.
Can they really find you there though?
They could. I mean, I'm eventually going to go look. If you DM
I'm eventually going to go
going to go look.
You can find him, but he might not find you.
Yeah. Or you could email me. Well, listen, if you message me on Instagram, like whatever, I'll probably message you back as long as you're not like out of pocket.
Right. Oh, and I wanted to say happy birthday to Anka.
Oh,
I know, Anka, happy birthday.
Anka, happy.
Yeah. So the Castro Country Club is a clean and sober gathering place for all people and a home for the queer recovery community. We're located in the heart of the Castro district of San Francisco, and we endeavor to be a space where all can seek wisdom, Serenity, Courage, and Joy. And you'll find more information at castrocountryclub.org podcast. He put that up because he was saying, move on.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'd love for you to join us each week at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at the CCC on Facebook or the Castro Country Club on YouTube. Again, every week at 4 p.m. Next week, we're talking about amends, right? Amends, not I'm sorry, or something like that.
Yeah. The difference between making amends and saying I'm sorry. And if you can't see us live on Tuesdays, we're on all the things that you can find podcasts on.
Absolutely.
And I think that's it. I think we're done.
Exactly.
No,
Right.
What about speak pipes and emails? And did we already do that?
When are we done?
I think that we might need to just keep it and not really kind of announce it, because every time we announce it, it brings out our insecurities.
Not my insecurity.
I know.
It was never my idea.
Right.
While we are jabbering, I do want to say, because we didn't say today, it was heavily 12-step. None of us we're not ambassadors. We don't speak for 12-step. We speak for ourselves.
Although I don't think anyone's out there like, I think those are ambassadors to AA.
But you
You
never
don't
know.
know.
You never know, because the story you told us last week about this sponsee.
And some people only catch us for a moment.
Exactly. They may catch a glimpse, and we need to be responsible, Betty.
They didn't make it to the end to where you two were so unkind to each other. You weren't reading my shirt that says kind. I don't think you can.
It says be kind.
Be kind, yes.
I thought I had something witty to say. I'm not as quick.
I know.
as
I think it's time to go.
I'm not. We're done now.
Because we care about you.
And we love you. I
All right.
care about you. See
See you
you
next week.
Bye.
Ta-ta.